Hello and welcome to My Body, My Power podcast, where we shine our light, claim our worth, and empower the next generation. I'm your host, Kristen Rubis, a heart-led entrepreneur, mentor, and the creator behind the My Body, My Power movement. Here, we uncover authenticity, celebrate self-expression, and create a life and career that lights up the world. Welcome, Goddess. Let's dive in. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the My Body, My Power podcast. I'm your host, Kristen, and I'm deeply grateful to have a beautiful conversation with Camille. Welcome, Camille.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I really appreciate you having me here today, joining your audience.
Yes, thank you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the amazing work you're doing in the world.
Well, thanks for the question. I think it's important probably to share my origin story a little bit before I speak about what I'm doing today.
Great.
But folks should know that I'm the founder of Art, Body, and Soul. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But here's some background about myself that might be helpful because it's part of the story that leads to Art, Body, and Soul. So I spent more than 20 years in high-profile leadership positions in government roles and in nonprofits. And I noticed that there's a high rate of burnout going on, and I experienced that as well. But first and foremost, before I came into those leadership roles, I've always been an artist from the time I was just a little kid and, very, very small. When I was like 5 years old, I could draw almost all of the Disney characters that were out there because I had an encyclopedia book from Disney. And had all the characters, and I used to draw that. And that's been my life. My mom was an artist. I grew up, going to art classes with her. And she was going to belly dancing classes with her and things like that. And that's always been my center, that and teaching throughout my career. My formal education is in commercial art. So I was able to take my art and passion there. And I also had a passion for teaching. And in all my roles, I've always been a teacher of some sort and really used my artistic abilities in my roles in communications and leadership roles that I had. I worked in advertising agencies, communication agencies, government communications, and like many people, that leads to you moving into a leadership role. Because if you want to progress in your career, leadership is a way that you progress. So for me, I have had 20 plus years in these high profile leadership roles. And for years, I was starting to burn out. And as a people pleaser, you do more and more and more. And hustle culture just really amplifies that kind of unhealthy behavior, because people pleasing, well, it's nice to want to help other people, but being a people pleaser in the term we use today, it can be very unhealthy. So that led to a lot of burnout for me. That and the expectations in the world today of how to get ahead, which led to me founding Art, Body, and Soul, which is all about helping people who may be burnt out, who may have not found a path to their self, and helping them really ground and get to find their rhythm or reclaim their rhythm and have more joy in life.
Beautiful.
And let the burnout, the people pleasing, the hustle culture, the maybe not knowing of themselves, have that become a different space and let them learn and grow. And I do that through facilitating healing art. And healing does not necessarily have to be full of tears. Healing can be joyful. It can be recurrous. It can be fun. So through healing art, and then a lot of somatic type of work, making sure that people are moving their body and they're working on their mindset and having all of the tools to do that. So
Beautiful.
I do that through a lot of education and courses, and then classes on facilitated art classes. So yeah, that's what Art, Body, and Soul is about. And that's my passion and
Beautiful.
what I do today.
Thank you. What was a defining moment in your life that changed the way you see yourself and the world?
Well, I've had multiple defining moments. I don't think there's just one point in my life where I can say this was everything.
Yeah.
But I can tell you one that as soon as you asked that question, I knew exactly the moment. So I had been doing a lot of self-work. For years, I went to therapy. I had, like a lot of people, I had trauma in my early life. And I had gone to therapy. I was doing the work. I don't think you need to be, in my opinion, and I don't need to go to therapy every week for all of my life, but I had the tools in place. And when my therapist retired, I knew it was the time for me to continue to just really think about how I was going to enhance this self-work and this journey. And my husband and I were having a conversation, and I was telling him about something I was struggling with. And he said, well, and he's really good at mindset. He said, well, you need to change that way of thinking and think about considering it this way. And I said, you're right. I said, but I've been this way for 50 years. And I said, and I'm not going to be able to change that tomorrow. I won't wake up and be different. And that was when, it seems so obvious, right? But I had been just, why can't I change? I need to change it. He's absolutely right. And I was like, well, how am I going to change that thinking here to be more active here and start to be enmeshed in all that I do? And I just said, well, I'm with you. You're right. I need to change that thinking. And I said, but it's going to take a while. I said, I know it's going to take a while. And so I started on this work of starting to identify the things and get to know my inner self a little more. So that was a huge defining moment.
Beautiful.
Some other defining moments, and I think that people need to understand that you probably will have defining moments throughout your life, right? There's multiple, right? There was the time when I changed careers and I went to college as an adult with 2 little kids, a single mom, and decided to embrace my art that I had my whole life. And, that was a defining moment. It changed everything for me. My whole spirit just changed when I could bring my natural talents forward. You can see the paintings behind me.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Brings me joy, right? So that was another defining moment. And so, that was bringing my strengths forward. And I have a class that I offer that's just about that. It's about finding your natural strengths that I offer. It's called Green Lights, and identifying the green lights in your class or in your life. And in this class, you learn how to do that so that you can find where your natural rhythm is. So that was a huge defining moment. And then the pandemic actually for me was another defining moment. that's pretty pivotal in my life. So this was a couple years after I had started this work, after I had this conversation with Rick and said, "You're right, I'm going to have to work on this," right? And I had been doing all of this work on myself. And as the pandemic hit, and many people, not everyone, but a lot of people in my personal circle were at home for a very, very long period of time with the inability to go out. For example, where I worked in government, my husband worked, we could not go into our buildings. We just weren't allowed to do that. And he was diagnosed with cancer, and we didn't know enough about his vulnerabilities and how this virus might affect him. So we were home for long periods of time without seeing other people in person. And I took a class at Yale, and it was called The Science of Happiness and Well-Being, and with Dr. Laurie Santos. And I started to learn all about how the brain works and the things that bring joy and happiness to people's lives. And that's when I started Art, Body, and Soul. And I did it as a side hustle, like as a personal passion. And I just wanted to help people. And I just started creating content on my personal social channels and helping share all of that with people, because your brain, we have our spirit, right? We have our spirit, and then we have our brain, and we have to bring those two together. And if we don't understand what some of the things are that are going in how our bodies work, then you might be wondering why is this happening? And there's some things that you can do to work with your body, to bring yourself joy, to find happiness, to let your spirit thrive in, your soul, let your soul thrive in the body we have today. And so that was a huge defining moment when I learned all about just the neuroscience of the brain. And I've always been a big believer in research-based work. I did that in my work when I was, leading high-profile communications around climate change and making sure that I used research-based tactics. And so having this now, finding in the wellness space that I could do the same thing. So those are the three defining moments that I really had that have just really changed the trajectory of my life.
Beautiful. Thank you. And what is a personal journey behind your passion?
Well, I kind of shared it a little bit there, but it goes beyond that. So part of my personal passion is I've been someone, and this is where a lot of people are shamed or we don't want to talk about this, but I've suffered with anxiety and depression throughout my life. And I didn't know that some of the trauma that I experienced as a kid really was a big catalyst for that, right? And so for me, not knowing that and not knowing the tools that I had, there were tools to help me that my heart racing, getting that sweaty feeling, these anxiety things, there wasn't something wrong with me. This was what anxiety looks like. We haven't always talked about anxiety or depression outwardly as a society in the United States. And it seems, and just until recently, and that's because it's a second pandemic after COVID. But knowing that I had all of this trauma that I needed to process, I needed to find ways to work with that and to find the tools. And when I did that, and I've done certifications today now, right? I have a certification in facilitated art therapy, right? And then I have a Reiki activation. I'm a Reiki practitioner. And I also have fitness background. So I've been able to work that into somatics. I was a coach, an athletic coach for CrossFit for many years,
Oh,
with,
wow.
Olympic lifting certifications and
Wow.
kettlebell certifications and, working with a bunch of chiropractors and different people on how to help people get healthy. And all of that, really led to me bringing these things together, because it was a problem I was having is I was looking for things in all of these different places, and it started to bring me overwhelm, right? And I don't want overwhelm because I'm already trying to heal, right? And I was already
Right.
burnt out because I was just doing this high profile stuff on climate change, and how controversial that has been since it was discovered. Always constantly under the, I want to say, mutiny of people, right? Of saying it doesn't exist and people claiming that that's, untrue. But so finding a way to bring that all together so that people would have a place to know that it's not just any one thing that needs to happen to really bring holistic wellness for yourself. And my unique piece is doing art for the soul, right? Balancing your chakras by doing art practices where I have one particular class that I teach where we work together to create a mandala to balance your root chakra, right? We use a lot of red color, talk, eating red foods, if how to identify if your chakra is out of balance, but also how to move your body in a way and be, so you're healthy and that's moving. And then feeding yourself in a mindful, intentional way, and bringing a lot of other practices into place to, help yourself, whether that's finding your personal strengths, doing self-discovery. So that's really, that's kind of the story behind the passion behind what I do is I know I wasn't alone in anxiety and, suffering with some depression and finding ways to, overcome that. And a lot of people don't know that moving your body, getting outside, being mindful, having a creative outlet, when you bring those things together, it is so powerful. You can heal yourself. You can bring yourself into a state where you're not suffering anymore. And so that's the passion is when I started practicing all of this, and I wanted to share this knowledge because, like I said at the beginning in my origin story, I've always been a teacher. I started teaching when I was 17, when I had a job at a fast food restaurant. They said, "You are so good at teaching. When you turn 18, can you start being our trainer for everybody?" And I started training, and then I've trained in all jobs. When I worked in a bank, I was an adult. I ran an adult education, teaching people like when they were just figuring out what computers were. I'm like, well, here's how a computer works, and this is what a network is. This is what the internet actually is, and here's how to use all of the software and how to, So I've done all kinds of teaching, and then then I learned that people would want to learn about art, and then now I can teach things about movement and body awareness. So
Beautiful offering.
it's really I feel so crazy blessed that I'm sitting here today doing something so wonderful.
Good for you. That's beautiful. What does radical self-love mean to you, and how has it played a role in your journey?
That's an interesting question. I think that's so personal for everybody. And a lot of us don't even know what radical self-love is. So I'm not going to claim to be the expert on it, because I find that, like I said, with these defining moments in my life, there's multiple defining moments, right? We're on these different timelines, right? Who I was when I was a teenager is a different timeline than who I was when I was working in an advertising agency out of California, right?
Right.
And now I'm on this other timeline here. And where I'm getting to do all of this really soulful work. And for me, radical self-love is knowing that, one, I am enough. For right now, that's my radical self-love, is knowing I am enough, and also knowing that I am worthy. And those are things that a lot of people,
It's big.
I have learned that I'm not alone in that. Knowing I am worthy and knowing that I am enough just how I am. I'm not flawed if I'm the people pleaser part of me. If I don't check all your boxes, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
This is me, and I care deeply about people, and I want to help others, and I enjoy teaching, I enjoy creating, and what I bring to the table in life, who I am. If that's not enough for you, that's okay. It's enough for me. And
it's beautiful.
Yeah, so those are the two things that I think about right now. That's my radical self-love. It was different though at different times.
Definitely.
Right? That radical self-love, I needed different things at different times, but that's what it is today.
Yeah, well, thank you. I just feel like, especially as women, and just for me working a lot with young girls, just that whole being enough and the worthiness those are huge. They're huge aspects of our selfhoodship and just that essence of empowerment. And so congrats as far as whenever you arrive to that in your life of just feeling like you are enough and that you are worthy no matter what. And if you're not checking the boxes for some people, that's okay. And so I think that's a really empowered place to be, because coming from that people pleasing kind of energy, which so many people have, of overgiving, overdoing, and then realizing, wait a second, I need to fill my cup first. And then going into that place of worthiness and recognizing that we're enough just as we are. Those are just huge concepts that I think, they're simple, and it's a long journey to get there, or it can be a longer journey for people to get there. So once we arrive,
it's a lifetime. It can be a lifetime journey.
Right. Where it always is, because we're going to have these life circumstances that, quote unquote, invite us to pivot, if you will. But if we have that essence of self-worth and just that confidence and that feeling of enough, then we're really going to be able to get through whatever is causing that pivot. And it is a life journey. I agree, where it's like it's a little bit of a roller coaster, our life. Like, we're feeling high when we're at the top of the roller coaster, and then we go back down to the lows. And it's like, to be able to just ride the roller coaster of life and recognizing it's not all rainbows and cherries every day. And it's okay that we're still whole, WHOLE, within those times that we might be a little bit down, or even when we go into those places of anxiety or depression. It's like we can, I still will feel that energy, but I'm not stuck in it. I can recognize it and have tools to bring myself out. But yeah, I just think the worth and the value it's a big one for women.
Something that I was thinking about as you were talking is corporate culture. And that's something that I'm passionate about, is helping people today who are in a corporate culture and, fend off getting burnt out, and that being enough. As you were talking, I'm like, yes, when you show up, I am enough, how I am. But, the corporate cultures, they want more and more and more, and you get sucked into that people pleasing. And the more you give, the more they ask for. And you may have already been tapped out. You may have been at the tapped out, man. I've given it all. Just like in the ring, I'm tapping out. It's too much. I'm already there. And then they ask again. And then they'll ask again, because you're like, okay, well, I'll rearrange this and I'll go do this. And then suddenly all the things that are important in your life are starting to get eroded, because one, you have to feel like you're not enough if you're not actually fulfilling every single request. And stepping back, it's ridiculous, some of the things that, how much I've been asked to produce and how much I was able to do. And it was just wild. And now, when you step away from something and you go, holy folks, that was not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to put up boundaries, I guess that would be the other thing for me that is
Mm-hmm.
radical self-love, is setting healthy boundaries. And I have been doing that on the regular. I don't like to use the word, I'm going to set a boundary here, but I've had to do that before. I've said,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I think we need to stop right here because I'm going to set a healthy boundary at this moment.
That's it.
And
Well, it can be that easy. It doesn't have to be so intense where it's just like, nope, you've hit a point in my nervous system that we're not good, or I'm not good. So I'm going to put something up there. And that's, you know, to just have it be this, just like, that's it. And we're moving on to the next thing. And it doesn't have to be this like, oh my gosh, she's creating a boundary. What does that mean? You know, it's like, no.
Yeah. You know, hey, and just come at it that way too. It's like, hey, I appreciate that, but I've got, you know, this is too much now. And, you know, and whatever it is, you know, you can set boundaries different ways. And I think it's so important because people need to learn to do that, because we aren't doing that in our workplaces today. We're not setting healthy boundaries. Now, some people I've admired, they have been able, in my career, I've watched them put healthy boundaries up. And I'm like, why can't I do that? Why am I not putting healthy boundaries up? And at the time, I didn't know I wasn't putting healthy boundaries up. I was just like, why can't I say no? Why are they easing through that? You know, but everybody has a different journey. You know, I wasn't taught that growing up. I almost describe myself as growing up feral, right? You know, remember latchkey kids and, you know, you know, it was just different times. I was alone quite a bit, and, you know, and then I had a very different lifestyle as I was brought up. And so I just know there wasn't somebody there giving the guidance like we're able to do today. Where in so many instances, not all, there's a lot of places where, you know, people are still, you know, kids are experiencing, you know, aloneness or loneliness or being left to their own devices. But people are more aware today. And I'm watching so many young women who are mothers, and the care that they're giving their kids is so awesome. And I'm seeing them do wonderful things. And like my daughter, for example, I'm just so proud of her. And she knows when she's like had too much, and she's like, I don't know what to do. And like, okay, well, put your hand on your heart.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
Yeah. That's it. Man, that is like such the sweet, easiest tool is hand on heart and belly, and take a breath. Brings us right back to the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. Yes. Well, what is the most authentic version of you, and how does that align with the impact you want to make?
Well, the impact that I want to make, I'm going to flip that upside down. The impact I want to make is when I interact with people that they feel like I've seen them, right? So, but that means I have to listen. I didn't always do that very well. It was all about this vibration, this high vibration, right? Whether it was my heart chakra needing, I need more, and I was just, you know, just vibrating too high, and I wasn't able to listen and be calm and process. You know, we got to talk fast. We got to get things done. It happened a lot with people I worked with on the East Coast. I worked with all these people from the East Coast, and they're just, and you know, you start to adapt to these people around you. But, you know, making sure that people feel seen. And I've just found that when I relaxed and was able to just take a breath and really be present, a lot of times people don't know what that means. You know, I hear, you know, you need to be present. And I'm like, well, I am, and I'm not on my phone. So, you know, like you're in a meeting and they're like, be present. And I'm like, I am present, but they don't explain what that looks like. Another word is resilient, like resilience, right? Like we need resiliency. Well, let's define what those things are, right? What does that look like in practice? And that's the thing that isn't said. right? It's like, you need to be resilient. Well, okay, I'm just going to wake up tomorrow and be resilient. I will just be resilient tomorrow. And that was like that moment I had with my husband. He says, he was talking about a mindset thing. And I'm like, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll just be that way. That's not going to happen. So for me, being authentic is, one, helping people be seen. And then two, at the right time, being a teacher where I can be a teacher, a guide of some sort, a helper. And I guess that's what my name means. I found out when I looked at it, my name means helpful attendant. And I do like to teach. My neighbor down the road here, she comes over to my house every morning at 6:30, and we work out in my garage gym.
Wow.
And I teach. And so because I have all of these CrossFit certifications and Olympic lifting certifications and endurance sports certifications and things I've learned. And she wanted to do these things with me because I'm always doing something. Mm-hmm. And so, so I'm able to teach her, but I teach her about the things that she needs help learning. Right. So when I say I want to be a teacher for the right things, that's different people and different times. And maybe it doesn't mean I need to teach you at all. Right. But at the right times, my most authentic self is teaching and then being creative. I don't know if I'm sure you have been in flow state. If anybody's ever been in flow where you lose a sense of time and you're doing something, you're like, how did like 3 hours just pass? It seems like it was just like 40 minutes. And I get that way when I'm being creative. And that's for now, that's usually artistic work. So whether that's, the mandala art, or I have a life spiral that I paint that we do, I have, some ancestry things, and I have to work, I create these things. Right. And so I think I'm in my most authentic self when I'm creating something and thinking about how that can be shared and create joy somewhere else.
Yes.
And laughter is medicine. I feel like so everywhere that I've worked, fun fact, everywhere that I've worked, people have always said, oh my gosh, I can hear you laughing down the way. You know how there's those people in the office or they have a giggle, they have a laugh. I'm one of those people who can, and I love to laugh. It's just, it feels so good. Sometimes I get on a roll where I actually am crying. And this isn't like infrequent, right? I'll be like, oh, I'm just like, and then you start, and if you're with somebody, you start laughing and the other person's laughing and you don't know why you're laughing. You're just laughing.
It's the best. So good.
And just, yeah. So, those are the things I think about when I think about my authenticity are those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And what advice would you give to someone who's currently where you once were?
Yeah, that's right. That's my impetus, right? I want to help people who are in the state that I was in, or can identify that they're headed there. And what I would say to them is, you need to prioritize your self-care. And I'm not talking a bath, right? A bath can be self-care. So let's be clear. I do recommend that, like, if you need to take a hot shower, like women around the world in many different places where life doesn't afford them things for self-care. Their self-care is actually, they look forward to that 5 minutes in the shower that they get by themselves. It's the only time in the day that they're not working really hard or having to take care of their kids, or just, struggling to provide, and they have 5 minutes. So I want to be clear that,
yes.
I'm not, but when I say self-care, there's all kinds of self-care, and to prioritize it and to recognize self-care is how we start to get healthier as people, mind, body, and soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have those three things need to work together. Your mindset, your body, and recognizing spirit or soul, higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But realizing that you need self-care for all of those things. And that self-care is not a woo-woo thing, and it's nothing to be, just set aside as optional. If you want to thrive in life, truly thrive, you need to prioritize your self-care, and you need to invest. You need to invest in you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give a great example. A few days ago, I was at this wonderful event, and it included sound healing. And it was so beautiful. Happened to be with lovely Kristen, right?
Yay! Yeah, it was
And to me, that
wonderful.
was self-care.
Yes.
I today still struggle with trying to meet all the needs and the demands I have, right? Just like
Mm-hmm.
that's just normal in life.
Mm-hmm.
But I prioritize that I'm going to go do this. I'm going to take a couple of hours. I'm going to go through a sound bath. And it was so lovely. But
Mm-hmm.
self-care can also look like I am going to figure out how to work on this burnout that I have going on, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can feel that I'm starting to get burnt out where everything, so burnout, right? It's when your pituitary gland has been just firing in stress over and over and over and over. And it's a real physical thing. It's not just like, oh, that's a mental state. No, it's an everything state. Physically you're burning out. You can't continue to pump out all of that adrenaline and things to keep you going, right? It burns out. So recognizing what burnout looks like and getting some practices in place to
Mm-hmm.
help yourself, whether that's, hey, you know what? I am going to go to this this evening, paint class with a couple of friends, and we're going to paint an autumn harvest scene, and we're going to be in community with some people. We're going to laugh, and we're just going to have a good time, and I'm going to shut everything out. Or maybe it
Mm-hmm.
means you're going to, for example, like maybe take one of my strength finder class, the green lights class, and find out what are my strengths. What are my strengths that I can identify that will help me in my job to stop the burnout thing? What can I do differently?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it can just actually, I think one of the very first things that people should do though when they start to invest, and we talked about this earlier, is one, you need some breath work.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a breath. Okay. Is your day getting out of hand a little bit? Are you starting to feel that vibration, that nervousness? Okay, let's take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's hydrate. Give myself enough water. All of your organs need proper hydration to work well. Drink the water, right? All of your organs are going to thank you, because when you're not drinking enough, your body is working so hard just to its basic functions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what am I putting in my body? Is it toxic? Is it good food? Is it healthy? Is it whole food? And then am I moving my body? Am I moving? Am I doing something creative? Am I taking care of my body through movement? Am I taking care of my body through whatever I'm fueling it with? Am I getting rest? Am I breathing? That's where everybody should start. But that goes back to investing in yourself
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that self-care doesn't have to be an overhaul of your life. It can be a little shift. You know what? I'm going to hydrate every day. And by the way, bye is the 64 ounces a day. That's just the minimum.
Yeah.
That's just a minimum of water you should be drinking. That's just to function well, right? You need to,
Right.
if you want to be hydrated, kick it up to 90. right?
Well, I've heard half your body's weight in ounces every day is what I teach my kiddos in my camps.
Yeah, right. So
So
you got to
that's,
get
I
a
mean,
lot of water. So there's
yeah.
just basic things that you can start with.
Mm-hmm.
But that all goes back to investing in yourself
Mm-hmm.
and starting to learn what self-care is and being open to things not necessarily looking like what you thought we were supposed to be like when we grew up,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Because most people today, and essentially most of the millennials, are recognizing that whole thing that Gen Xers and the baby boomers went through of how we have to work so hard and go, 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 go and get to that
Mm-hmm.
burnout point. They're starting to recognize like, oh, no, 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 this is bad. I can feel it's bad. What's
Mm-hmm.
happening to me? And everybody has anxiety, but we're talking about unhealthy levels of
Right.
anxiety,
Right.
unhealthy levels of things. Everybody's going to have bumps and lumps along the way. That's just
Right.
part of life. But I'm talking about recognizing unhealthy levels and then prioritizing yourself and defining self-care and define it your way. You can pick and
Mm-hmm.
choose how to put your self-care together. And if I
Right.
could be a part of that and I can help you, I
All the
think that
better.
then I'm serving my purpose here on
Mm-hmm.
this planet.
Well, I remember when I first was starting to do massage. I was a massage practitioner for about 14 years, and I closed my practice with COVID. But I would get a lot of energy work when I was doing that kind of work just to clear my own self. And I remember in a therapy session or a healing session, the woman just said, if you don't have even a half hour, an hour, quote unquote, to meditate and do like a full morning practice, just throughout your day, just take a moment, hand on heart, close your eyes, take a breath, and just remind yourself that you got you, I'm here, I'm present, and it's just the more quantity than quality, if you will. Like if you don't have that full hour, but it's just constantly, just coming back to thyself and just coming back to the breath, I think can just help to balance the nervous system when we are, especially when we're in those heightened states with the cortisol, but just on the reg.
Yeah, and I love what you just said about how someone recommended that if you don't have time for like a morning practice, which by the way, that is such a wonderful thing. That is how I started
Mm-hmm.
after my husband said, you have to think about thinking this way, right? I'm like, oh my, how am I going to do that? Right. I started a morning practice
Yeah.
and I've practiced almost every day. There's only been a couple days that I've missed in 5 years.
Yeah. Good for you.
Every day. And I have
Mm-hmm.
a morning practice. And here's the thing though, it doesn't always start that way. And I love that you called that out because that's not always possible. You might get there, start where
Mm-hmm.
you're at. In fact, it reminds, so I really promote starting where you're at. I've actually published a journal called Flow Journaling, and my journal is called Chasing Light, and it has practice in there for you because a lot of people can't sit down and do what we think is a proper journal, right? Journaling session.
Mm-hmm.
I used to think I'd have to write love letters to myself and this long drawn out thing. I can't do that. That's just not me. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
I'm a more practical gal. I don't, that just doesn't work for me. So I created this system called flow journaling where you throughout the day, like you just said, maybe you can't sit down for 30 minutes to do all these things. So flow journaling was to just start where you're at and use this journal as your to-do list. But also in there, just reminders each day, write down like what's one thing I was grateful for, even if it's in the middle of your day. Oh, that person was really great on the help desk just totally saved my keister from this crash. Write it down. They came to the rescue.
Mm-hmm.
Or write down something that you're doing for self-care. Okay, today I acknowledge that I got all my water in. Thank heavens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, personal goal. Write the things down in your journal that way. Take a breath. If you're waiting for a Zoom call to start, stretch, while you're stretching. Yeah. Just do a little
Totally.
stretch before a Zoom call. Yeah. Roll your
Mm-hmm.
shoulders, roll your neck, just throughout your day. I just love that they told you that, because that's really how you have to start with self-care too. If you haven't been in this mindset of knowing what self-care looks like and having that as part of your practice in life to reduce unhealthy levels of anxiety, which I'm not kidding. It's like a second pandemic here. There is tons of people who are just suffering from unhealthy levels of anxiety. We all get anxiety. Like, for example, I'm going to go speak to 800 people. Yeah, you should probably be a little bit nervous as you walk out on stage,
Right.
That's normal, right? We're talking unhealthy levels. Or, people do suffer from some mild depression, but is it unhealthy levels? What can I do to reset my body and mind to help get out of that? So,
Well,
yeah.
and I recently got with a coach at the end of January. Her name is Camille. Also, her business is Vital Mystic, and so she has a new program coming out, the Viral Craft, and she just has these pillars. And her whole thing is using ritual and astrology and intention to uplevel your business. And she's basically a millionaire at like 37 years old. She's amazing. She's one of the most just powerful, transparent, generous, beautiful humans on the planet. I'm so deeply grateful to be in her container. And so part of her offering is a daily dose where you're scripting your day in the morning. I also have a morning practice I've had for a long time, and it's shifted over the years of what that includes. But it's interesting to script the day, and you're really scripting how you want to feel in the day, and intentions that you're setting, goals that you might have, and just different kind of dreams that you might have, you're putting in there as if it already happened. And so it's interesting because it's kind of like engineering your own time, or it's playing a little bit with the time with the universe and just trying to basically put out there what you're willing to connect with and energize with, and anything that's not on your scripting is going to fall away. And so it's just a different way to kind of set intentions for the day. And so I did my scripting this morning, and it was like, Ita podcast breakfast, Camille podcast lunch, and it's just like, and to feel empowered and to have a peaceful conversation and be filled with love. And so it's just a sweet way to kind of start the day where it is really intentional. I light a candle every day and I write down things I'm releasing, things I'm manifesting, put it to the candle, do my scripting, pick a tarot card, and, I do some meditation and stuff too. But all of that takes, it can take up to an hour if I wanted, but it could be 12 minutes, and it is the sense of investing in you, where it's like, we do have to prioritize ourselves. And I think especially as women and moms, like, we're constantly just giving to other people, and we have to learn to fill our cup first and just continue to put ourselves as a priority and invest in ourselves in the most authentic way that we can. And if it is overwhelming, I just appreciate just in this conversation thus far, where we're just trying to simplify it, where it's like, hand on heart, take a breath, take a sip of water, take a shower, go for a walk, pick up a paintbrush. Like, it doesn't have to be these super extravagant things. It's really just coming into the moment. Because usually when we're in the moment, it's usually okay. We're not fearing the past. We're not projecting the future. We're right here. And in that place is where we really shine.
And I love that you say, being in the moment. So many times people, when they're trying to manifest, they think about, I want, and they're not being in the moment. And when you don't realize that when you say, I want, the energy you're really putting out there is, I don't have. I want. And so when you can stop and pause and be present, right? And stop the I want, which translates into I don't have it, right? And that's the energy you have. If you're present, then you're in this moment, and there isn't the I want. You can start to write, like you said, write your script. I'm in this moment. I'm doing this. I'm enjoying this. And you start to believe and create this energy that shifts from the I don't have to the I am, I'm doing, I here I go. This is, and these are the things that take time to have those shifts. But it starts with that being present And what does actually being present look like? Because we hear that, but we don't describe it, right? And that's where I think today we can help people, folks like yourself and me and many, many, many others, is we can help people understand what it looks like in simple practice. And it starts with small shifts, small shifts. You don't have to overhaul your life, because that will actually keep people away from making progress, because they're already overwhelmed. They don't need to overhaul. What they need is one small shift. I got that down.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Now I got that rhythm. Now
Well,
I'm
and
going
then
to add
there's
another
that
rhythm.
success, because when I was a massage practitioner, it was funny because I love talking with people. I love helping people with their stuff. And I would start to get calls once I was doing it more full time of like, oh, I'd like to sign up for a therapy session. I'm like, I'm not a therapist. I'm a massage practitioner. Oh, well, my friend sees you and she says you're like a therapist. I'm like, if you want to come in for massage therapy, then like sign you up. But it is just that sense of how we can, be in the moment, have goals, setting goals, having some intention, and then just also like allowing the flow of it to happen. And when we have these tools in place, if it doesn't always go exactly perfect, we're still going to be okay. We still can come back. It's just coming back to the present moment really is just how it can be.
Gratitude is another piece of that as well, right? So being grateful for what we have. I have so many wonderful things in my life. Do I have everything in the world that I could possibly want? No, I have enough. I am doing so well. And I'm grateful for all of the things that I have. And I try and recognize that, even though I didn't used to like to get up and work out at 6:30 in the morning, but my neighbor's like, this is just when I can this year with the kids' school workout, their school schedule. And I'm like, yeah. Okay. So here we are at 6:30. I'm so grateful now that I do that, because I'm telling you, by 8:30 in the morning, I have worked out. I've taken care of all the pets. I've watered all the plants. The chickens are done. I've got the dishes unloaded. I'm up really early. I'm doing all the things. And I'm like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that little bit of pain I went through a couple of days, because now I've like elevated just my whole morning routine, so it's,
Good for you.
Finding gratitude in all that we do. And I know there's people in life where there's a lot that they're suffering with, right? There's a lot. But I think about those who have overcome adversity, big adversity in life. And if you look to them, they were all grateful. You look like somebody, who was, imprisoned, Nelson Mandela, lots of leaders around the world, and how they came to lead groups and nations, and maybe but they're grateful for different things. Or, your 90-year-old auntie, she's my 90-year-old auntie is grateful for lots of things. And I look at that, and I look at the people who thrive, and I find that is like one of the most common threads is their gratitude in life. And we hear that a lot, guy, no, practice gratitude. Well, there's a way you can do it your own way. You don't have to write it down. When you do this, you can just stop, and you can just think about something that you're grateful for. And what a lot of people don't realize is your brain doesn't know the difference between something that happened and what's happening when you visualize it in your brain, you think about it. And so all the things that made you feel good the original time, all those happiness neurochemicals, they re-release. And that is why people who are grateful, I believe that's one of the foundations to their joy in life, is because they've trained their brain to just be in a thriving, flourishing state.
Yeah, for sure. Beautiful. Well, what does my body, my power mean to you?
That's an interesting question. You ask a lot of really good questions. So one of the things I believe that we all have is control over, or we should have control over, is our body, our personal, our body is ours, and we get to do whatever we want with it. And that means how we take care of it, what we want it to do for us, how long we want it to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is how we let people treat us. And I guess that gets into my power. And because when people infringe, having power in your voice to be able to say, this is, those healthy boundaries, and knowing that you can speak your truth. So those are all things that are so important that I feel for me are like pillars in my life, is taking care of my body, being able to protect my mindset or how people treat me, and how I present in the world. And one thing that I do that I try to exude in my power is, and I say this at the end of every episode of my podcast, is I make it my personal mission each day to lift somebody up, to lift one person up each day. And I always invite other people to join me in that mission. And so thinking about my personal power, that's one of the things that outside of my body, that's how I want to use my power in life, is to lift others up. And if they can pay it forward, then I think I've done a good thing.
Yeah, beautiful. So Camille, tell us how our listeners can find you. What is your website and socials that you're on?
So my website is artbodyandsoul.com. And I just recommend going to artbodyandsoul.com. I mean, I have socials. My YouTube is artbodyandsoul.com. And then my Pinterest is artbodyandsoul.com. That's where I really invest, is in YouTube and Pinterest.
Okay.
And I am on Instagram under Cam St. Onge, and over on Facebook. But really, if you want to stay up to date, Pinterest and YouTube, and then my website, really. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and do you have any events or anything coming up, or is it more just basically working through your services through the Art and Body Soul services?
Well, I'm really glad that you asked that question. So I live in Olympia, Washington, and in October, I am hosting a women's circle at a place called Her Space in Lacey. And we're going to come together, and we're going to do some fall connecting, and we're going to do some creating. And we're going to work on a gratitude flower painting that we're going to make.
Ooh, beautiful.
And then there'll be another event. We're doing the life spiral work. And so those are two events that are coming up. They aren't published on my website yet, but because I'm reserving the space right now, but those are coming up. But I just encourage people to go to artbodyandsoul.com, and that's where you'll find all the happenings. I have a new, a new publication that I just am releasing. It's called 5 Strategies to Ease Stress and Nourish Your Soul. And it goes over those 5 strategies, and I have a little bonus journal page in there, and some things that you can do, tips for every day to start to ease stress and nourish yourself. So, and that couple's really nice with, I have a free audio 5-day course that's full and light, that includes some just basic mindfulness things that you can do every day to get a little 5-day reset, and some journal prompts. So those are kind of the things that I think people would be most interested in.
Yes. And do you have any final thoughts for our listeners, Camille?
Well, I just am so grateful for to have this time with you, and to get to connect with you, Kristen. And
Me too.
And I'm wishing you all the success with your new membership coming up for your sound healing.
Yes.
And it's just, we need more people in the world right now who are bringing out positive energy. My final thought is, I feel a collective shift in energy in the planet, the people around the planet right now. Mm-hmm. I've been feeling it for a while. And we need more people to spread positive vibes and lift other people up, and to support people around us, and know that everything that we're doing today is investing in our world for future generations. And so do good things, leave a good legacy, be kind to your neighbor, call your kids, call your best friend, connect with somebody in person, and just continue to spread joy and love. And if you aren't doing that, do join me in my mission to lift one person up each day. And whoever that may be, even if it's just the cashier. In fact, probably the cashier needs it more than anybody after all the cranky people going through. Lift one person up each day. And so that's my final thoughts. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
Yes. Well, thank you, Camille, for this empowering conversation. And thank you to our listeners. We greatly appreciate you tuning in. And we'll see you next time. Community Power Rocks. Thank you for joining me on this journey of empowerment and connection on the My Body, My Power podcast. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who inspires you. Together, we're creating a ripple effect of confidence, courage, and light. Until next time, Goddess, keep shining your power.